What's up, everyone? It's Friday, August 2nd. Let's talk PlayStation. So before we get to the actual cover story and the actual, title of the video, because I know you want to see that, but let's talk about a couple other things that happened in the PlayStation world. Bioshock Vita, another update has come out. Ken Levine coming out basically saying the same thing, another update, basically saying he can't greenlight the project himself. He can't just make Bioshock Vita happen. And he once again said he's still talking to Sony, he's still talking to Take-Two, and he's still trying to get something going. I mean, Ken Levine totally wants to do it, and that's awesome because we want him to do it. He wants to do the project, he wants to make Bioshock on Vita, but he can't greenlight the project himself. And of course, obviously, I'm going to assume what's happening here is, Take-Two doesn't want to develop for Vita because they probably won't see a high, return and profit and all that, or they won't see their money back. And Sony is maybe not offering enough funding, to actually get the game rolling, because Sony's not just going to say, hey, make a game for us, especially if it's going to be exclusive to Vita. So Sony has to fund the game some way, I would assume, and that's where that's where it kind of gets a little rocky. So hopefully something happens at some point. I want this to happen, especially if Ken wants it to happen, because we know he's the creative mind behind this, and I want to see what he can do and what he can put on Vita. Make it happen, please. So let's talk about Sony as a company and them actually making money, which, companies usually try to do nowadays. As you know, for years now, Sony has been losing a lot of money, and they have not been in the black for a very long time. They're in the black this past quarter. They actually earned $35 million. Granted, that's a very low amount of profit, but they actually made profit, which is something the company has not done in a very long time. So it's nice to see that they're moving forward, but one thing to mention as to why they're in the profit is sort of the exchange rate, and foreign money has kind of changed. The currency exchange rates are kind of working in their favor right now, so they're making more money, which, is good for them. But they're also saying that their smartphone division is doing better. The reformation of LCDs and their TVs are doing better. And now in terms of course, the most interesting thing for us is the PlayStation division. They're selling lots and lots of software. PlayStation, hardware is down. They're not selling as many PS3s. Obviously, they're not selling a whole lot of Vitas or PSPs anymore, but that would make sense considering, the Vita's been struggling and PS3 is going down because PS4 is coming up, and they're spending a lot of money actually making the PS4 and prepping that and getting that ready. So their PlayStation division didn't make any money, but the company as a whole is earning money. So that's obviously, go good. It really is interesting that they bounced back because, man, they were losing billions and billions of dollars. So it's great. A company's actually starting to dig itself out of the grave a little bit. Usually when companies start dying, they can't make it, and they're... So one thing we talked about a while ago, PlayStation Plus is required for online, and we did mention that you don't need PlayStation Plus for all the extra stuff of the PS4, which is Netflix, media services, party chat. All that has again been reconfirmed. You can use party chat if you don't have PlayStation Plus, and if you don't really care about playing online. That's all cool. One interesting thing that they said is that there's a 2,000 friend max limit on the on the PS4. So that's really, we thought it was 1,000. Xbox One's 1,000. PS4 is a 2,000 friends limit. That's a lot of people. I mean, I don't even have that many Facebook friends, or yeah, I don't even know that many people. I'm sure not many of you really care about a 2,000 friends limit, but I guess it kind of works out in my favor because I like adding a lot of you guys, and of course it sucks that I can only have 100 friends, and a lot of people do want to try and add me, so I have other people add my second account, and I'm not on my second account that often. So I guess good news for me, because that means I can play with more you guys. But the one question I really have about this is that when PS4 comes out, how is PS3 and Vita going to operate that many amount of friends? Because of course, it's, PSN is unified. My PSN is going to be logged into all three of these systems. When I start adding more than 100 friends on PS4, how is that going to reflect on PS3 and Vita? Are those going to get increased as well? Can they even, see, Sony has not answered that, and they said that they're going to announce that soon, so I really want to know if they're going to just... They have to increase the limit on those other platforms, I would have to assume, but apparently they have a workaround, which doesn't make sense, so I don't know. We'll see about that. So this next news story was making some headlines. Basically, PS Vita, we know remote play, it should work for all PS4 games. Someone asked on Twitter, hey, can I use the Vita as a second controller for the PS4 if I choose to do so? And Shuhei Yoshida replied saying that basically, no, that's not natively supported. It doesn't just work like remote play does, but of course, if a developer chooses to include that functionality, they can do that. Which would make sense. The Vita's there. If a developer wants to use it, they certainly could. However, it is, I guess, kind of odd that, remote play is supposed to just work, but, something like that couldn't just work. But then again, why would I want to use my Vita as a, full-on controller for the PS4? Just straight up using it to play. I wouldn't really want to do that, but I guess if a developer wants to do that, they could do that. But I'm probably gonna say that no developer is gonna include that functionality. Okay, so probably the most controversial news story going around this week was PS4's RAM was definitely under the light this past week. It was basically a rumor that the PS4 RAM, PS4 uses GDDR5 RAM, 8 gigabytes of it, very fast, high-speed memory. But a rumor came out basically saying that developers only have access to 4.5 gigabytes of that RAM for their game, and 3.5 of it is used for the OS, the operating system of the PS4. So a developer only had 4.5 gigabytes to work with. And some people were thinking developers had 7 gigabytes to work with. And that's where the controversy came from. People thought PS4 games were going to use all this high-speed RAM when really it was using only a little under 70% of it. And, this is still, none of this is confirmed, by the way. Sony never confirmed how much gigabytes are saved for the OS and how much developers get to use. So, there was also rumors saying that developers have some flexibility, that they can borrow some of the RAM is borrowable from the OS and they can use it more for their games. Some are saying 6 gigabytes, some are saying 6.5. At the end of the day, no one really knows, only other than Sony and developers and all that, because no developer wants to say it. Now, of course, what do I think about all this? Well, right off the bat, I'll tell you, I'm a tech geek, I have insight down this stuff. We all are knowledgeable on all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm not a developer. I'm not a hardware engineer. I'm not any of those things. I'm not directly in that industry. And I think me and the majority of people can't speak on that front, right? We can't speak for how much that's going to affect their games and all that, because that's the majority of the controversy that this is causing. Some people are saying it's going to cause make the games not be this, or make the games not be that, or games aren't going to perform as well, or visual fidelity won't be that amazing, or blah blah blah, right? At the end of the day, none of these people can speak for any of this stuff. Now, my second thing would be, let's say the PS4 is really super powerful and it has all this RAM inside of it. Well, guess what? There's also the Xbox One, there's also the Wii U, there's also a PC. Multi-platform games are all going to look the same, right? Like PC, they've got that customization and all that. Their games are going to look really good depending on their machine. But with consoles, at least in the console space, when, Ubisoft makes Watch Dogs on Xbox One and PS4, the games are going to look the same, I mean, developers and publishers, when they're releasing multi-platform stuff, they're going to go for the same visual fidelity. They're going to go for the same type of performance, right? Now, of course, you go back from PS3, you go back to PS3 and 360, right? That was sort of a situation where there was differences because, of course, PS3 was very hard to develop for and did have performance issues. That has been fixed with this current generation, with this upcoming generation. PS4, Xbox One, they're just like PCs. They're very easy to develop for. So I think it's safe to say, performance is not going to really be that much of an issue this upcoming generation. So it's a matter of, these multi-platform games are going to look, pretty much gosh darn the same. They're going to run the same. So I think even the real key differences here would be, exclusive games. What's Naughty Dog going to do with all this extra horsepower? What's Naughty Dog going to do with all this extra RAM? Even if they don't use as much as you think they're going to use. I mean, let me paint you a little scenario here. The PS3 is 7 years old, and look at what Naughty Dog and Sony Santa Monica did with the PS3. I mean, the PS3 had half a gigabyte of RAM, and Uncharted 3, The Last of Us, God of War 3, those games looked gorgeous. Killzone 2 looked incredible. I mean, even if we had 3.5 gigabytes of GDDR5 or even DDR3 RAM, these games are going to look so good. It's an improvement nonetheless, right? I mean, the performance is going to be fine. Of course, these are more powerful consoles. The visuals are going to be up. I think people just, it gets to that point where people just get greedy and they just want more and more and more, and they get upset because they think a company lied to them or whatever, I mean, lastly, to kind of conclude this, my third point would be, I'm happy. I'm a happy camper. I have no problem with this. I don't care about what's, blah, blah, blah. I know the PS4 is a step forward. It's an improvement from PS3. Even the same with Xbox One. I know it's better than the 360, right? I'm going to get better looking games. Their performance is already being confirmed to be better for a lot of these games. Some of these games are going to be in 60 frames per second. I'm happy with it. I'm completely fine with it. I'm not picky, I guess you'd say. I guess what I would say is I just care about good games, I would even argue that I don't care about, visuals, as long as my games run fine, Obviously, frame rate would suck if it was low and all that, but we've got plenty of RAM in both of these systems. The games are going to run just fine. And this isn't me just defending PS4 because PS4 is in the spotlight. I don't care about Xbox One RAM. I don't care if it's DDR3. I don't care what's inside. It's a step forward from the 360. Its games are already looking really good. People, and it gets into the console wars. People get really emotional and they like to bump heads and all that, and they get all worked up. Like I said, this whole news story for me was just who cares? My games look good. I'm a happy camper, and I can't wait to play, you know, awesome video games. So now let's finally talk about the thing that is near and dear to my heart, Jak and Daxter. You know, you guys know it's my favorite series. You know I want another one. You know I want a legitimate one, not The Lost Frontier. People ask me, hey Ryan, what do you think of Jak and Daxter, The Lost Frontier? My response to that is that game doesn't exist. So, of course I want a Naughty Dog to do another Jak and Daxter, or even any reputable developer to really take care of the game and take care of the franchise. But point being, Naughty Dog has commented on possibly, you know, Jak and Daxter 4. Basically, Naughty Dog did a Reddit AMA, you know, Ask Me Anything, and some people did ask about, you know, Jak 4. And Neil Druckmann and, you know, everybody at Naughty Dog, basically his response was that we tried it and we failed. Because, of course, this is going back to, as I've talked about before, actually, that Naughty Dog had started doing Jak and Daxter 4. They did start developing it, but, of course, it just didn't really work out for them with the engine that they were doing, and on the newer hardware, it didn't look right, it didn't feel right. And they decided to move on and do something like Uncharted and The Last of Us. And his response was, we tried it, it didn't work. Someone else asked, you know, Jak 4, where's Jak 4? And of course the response again was, we tried and we failed. But he said, and this is where we get that little teeny ounce of hope. He said, maybe we'll try again in the future. And I've said that before. A couple episodes ago on Let's Talk PlayStation, I was talking about what's Naughty Dog's next project. I do believe it's Uncharted 4. And of course, even further down the road, The Last of Us was very profitable. I'm sure they'll do a sequel to that. I've said before, I think they will do another Jak and Daxter game. It's just a matter of when, and the time is not now. And clearly, they've even said it's not now. Maybe in the future. And that's, I guess, as a Jak fan, that's all I need to hear, that it's a possibility. Maybe we'll get a true Jak and Daxter sequel at some point, people. I'm certainly holding out for it. I'm holding out for lots of video games that haven't happened yet. I'm sure all you are waiting for games that haven't happened yet. But these developers, man, these developers and publishers. Those are just some of the news stories I want to talk to you guys about this week in the world of PlayStation. But that concludes this episode. I'm Ryan Panecki. Thank you for talking with me. I'll catch you guys next Friday.